Hey guys, Dr. Alex Ritza here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the posture that will keep you pain-free. Well, we're going to be talking about the posture that you should be using at work, discussing some office ergonomics, giving you some cues to keep good posture, and talk about a couple of musts for the office. So, first and foremost, we have to have a small discussion. There's a difference between posture and structure. So think about the Leaning Tower of Pisa versus the CN Tower. Leaning Tower of Pisa, poor structure. Foundation is shifted and the rest of it also shifted. Now, the CN Tower, on the other hand, nicely stacked up. Bad structure, good structure. Now, when that relates to the human body, when we talk about the spine we want to see nicely stacked up. We don't want to see it shifted forward through all the vertebrae. So that's structure. Now, posture, on the other hand, is how you hold yourself and the position that you put yourself into. It's the equivalent of the CN Tower moving around the couple meters that it does in the wind. And the same for the Leaning Tower. The structure stays the same, but the posture can vary depending on, in this case, the wind or how you move it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that more in a second. So in terms of finding good posture at the office, I just want to give a couple of cues that's going to help keep your spine in a good, safe, healthy position and reduce the chance of getting sore or having an injury. So, couple of cues. When we're working away at our office, what we want to have is we want to actually be as lazy as possible. We really want to have the chair holding us up. So we want to do as little work as we can. The equivalent being, if you're holding a sledgehammer, you want to make sure that the sledgehammer is not tilted forward, creating a bunch of tension here. We want to make sure that the chair is holding us up. And one of the examples that I often use with practice members is I will hold them up and tell them to relax, and all their muscles go quiet and silent, and say that's what the chair should be doing. So your back should be up against the chair is holding you up, these muscles back here are nice and quiet and silent. And you'll notice that when I do this, my ear is stacked up over my shoulder, my eyes are naturally going to fall about here, and this is where we'd want to have our monitor. So our monitor, ideally we want to have our eyes about the mid-distance up the monitor, maybe the upper 1/3. So you can see with my home setup, not ideal. I overcome that with a couple of other things that we'll talk about in a second. So chair is holding us up, neck is stacked up over the shoulder, and then and we want to use, again, as little work as possible. We want to be really lazy. We want to make sure that our muscles are nice and relaxed. So in my case, I'm okay because the chair holds up my wrists. I can type away. But what you'll probably need is an arm support here so that the shoulders are not holding you up. Arm support here on the elbows. Something supporting the wrists. And I'm using as little work as possible as my fingers move away. So, ear over shoulder, back being held up by the chair, meaning you can't be sitting really far away from the chair. Too much work going on here, not lazy enough. And then otherwise you want to make sure eyes about middle of the monitor, and then the arms and the wrists are being held up and supported, so you're not holding the wrists like this and not holding the arms like that. So pretty simple. Now, let's say that you don't have the best ergonomics, that for one reason or another, you work on a laptop at home or your office just won't hook you up. So here's the other gold standards other than having good posture. The other gold standards are that you want to move every 15 or 20 minutes. So it doesn't mean you have to do a lap around the office and go for a water break and waste a bunch of productivity. It just means something simple of standing up, getting back into our good posture, and going back to work. Or it could be something as simple as just moving around. And the idea here is we want to minimize the amount of repetitive strain on those muscles and joints. You can think about it conceptually that on an assembly line in an automobile manufacturer plant, the same motion all day, every day, lots of repetitive strain. We want to minimize that in terms of our desk life. So moving every 15 or 20 minutes is the gold standard. That means, if you want to put your feet up, probably should wear socks at the office. If you want to put your feet up like this and work like this, that's okay, as long as you change positions every once in a while and take some load off the joints. But in terms of best posture practices, back against the chair, all those tips we talked about, that's the ideal. Now let's go on and we'll talk about if you have a standing desk and some of the ideals with that. So whether it's a standing desk or you just want to be able to find good posture when you're walking around or standing around, here is the following of what you should do. Obviously this is not where we want to be, so to make sure that we get good stacked up posture, what we want to do is first off tighten our glutes. You don't have to hold them really tight, just a light little activation. That's going to stack up the pelvis. What we do next is we brace the core. That means tightening the corset muscles or the abdominal muscles. Not a full contraction, just a little bit. And then we get the head, ear over the shoulder. So tighten the glutes, tighten the core so that the rib cage comes down, ear over the shoulder, and now you'll see that I'm nicely ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. I'm nicely stacked up. And then the same principles apply with where we want our monitor. And ideally our hands we want to have supported here on our standing desk setup. So that's how we get the spine stacked up in terms of our posture. Hopefully your structure is naturally stacked up, but more about that in a second. So that's standing desk technique, and that's how you find good posture when you're standing. So if you follow those strategies, you're going to minimize the amount of repetitive strain on your body, your spine, and your nervous system, and really reduce the chance of having some sort of injury or some sort of pain or repetitive strain issue that creates a problem or a shifting in the spine. Now that being said, if you are working 30 to 60 hours a week and not balancing that with something else that balances that shift forward or that repetitive strain issue from sitting, it might not be enough. And so that's where you probably want to go download our Move curriculum that I'll make sure is linked here, so you can be giving your body the movement that it needs, that it requires in order to be healthy. Now, the last thing, getting back to structure versus posture. So today we talked all about posture. We talked about making sure that we're maintaining good posture, that we're moving our body as we should. Now, the big caveat with this is if there is a structural distortion in the spine, if the structure is naturally shifted, it's going to be much harder to get into a good posture. And so that's where you're going to have to work a lot harder. Your joints are going to have a lower threshold for being painful or having a problem. And you're going to be more likely to experience some symptoms because the underlying physiology, the underlying function is worse. So that's what we help with a lot in our office. That if there is a structural shift, if there is a core problem in the spine, that's exactly what we correct, so that not is it easier to find a good posture, but the underlying spine and nervous system don't contribute to any problems like poor posture or anything else that maybe you're not even aware of yet. So I hope that was helpful today, guys. If you have any questions or concerns, please send me an email, leave a comment. I'd be happy to help. And make sure that if you're interested, I'll also include a link, talks about structure versus posture and gives a self-assessment guide. Until next week, I'll see you guys later. I hope you have an amazing week, and talk soon.